There is a kind of silence that is not empty. It is the silence that comes before a turning point. But almost no one recognizes this moment, because it does not come with clear signs. It does not come with confirmation. It does not come with guarantees. It comes with pause. And the pause is frightening. When everything feels too quiet, when answers do not arrive, when doors do not move, the mind interprets it as rejection. But what if silence is not rejection? What if it is alignment? There is a point in the process where the universe stops responding externally because it is reorganizing internally. And that point is decisive, because if you interpret it wrong, you interfere. If you interpret it right, you accelerate. Silence is not absence of movement. It is invisible movement. And the real question is not, why is nothing happening? It is, who am I being while nothing happens? 1. Silence is not absence. It is energetic reorganization. When nothing happens externally, something is being adjusted internally. That statement completely changes the interpretation of silence. Most people believe manifestation is visible movement, but before any external movement, there is an invisible reorganization. And this reorganization is not only circumstantial, it is structural. If your identity has changed, your reality needs to reorganize around it. Silence removes distraction so you can hear your real direction. While there is constant external movement, you react. You respond, you adapt, but when everything slows down, you begin to notice what is still misaligned within you. Silence reveals subtle inconsistencies that noise was hiding. The pause indicates vibrational recalibration. Every time you adjust your internal pattern, the field needs to reorganize. This involves people, opportunities, contexts, and even old versions of yourself losing strength. This process is not immediate because it is not superficial. Not every delay is blockage. Many are preparation. If something greater is being aligned, your emotional structure needs to be compatible. Receiving before maturity creates collapse. Growing externally without internal stability generates self-sabotage. Silence prepares the ground so that what arrives can remain. The invisible works before the visible manifests. Always. Before expansion, there is compression. Before the turning point, there is adjustment. Before the answer, there is alignment. The problem is not the silence, it is the anxiety during it. If you react with tension, you interfere with the reorganization. If you maintain stability, you accelerate the process. Silence is not empty. It is a field under construction. 2. What you sustain in thought is shaping the next movement. Silence amplifies what you sustain. When the external slows down, the internal gains strength. In this space, your recurring thoughts stop being noise and become direction. It is at this point that many people sabotage their own alignment without realizing it. Continuous focus creates energetic tracks. It is not intensity that creates movement, it is repetition. What you mentally revisit several times a day becomes an active pattern. Even subtle thoughts, when constant, become dominant. Repeated thoughts become vibrational patterns. You may desire change, but if you spend the day revisiting the problem, comparing your situation to others, or anticipating frustration, you are creating continuity of the same scenario. Silence tests the quality of your focus. And when there is no external distraction, your mind reveals its real direction. Where does it go on its own? To complaint, to fear, to comparison, or to quiet confidence? Complaining prolongs the pause. Aligning accelerates the flow. Complaining fixes. Complaining keeps active. Complaining communicates that you are still emotionally attached to the current scenario. Aligning is different. Aligning is directing your mind toward the state you want to sustain. Even without evidence, direct your mind like someone choosing an inevitable destination, not like someone waiting for luck, not like someone asking for confirmation, but like someone who has already internally decided that this is the direction. Silence is not judging you. It is observing your mental consistency. And consistency creates inevitable movement. 3. The feeling. you maintain defines the speed of alignment. Here is the most decisive point of all. It is not what you affirm. It is what you feel while nothing happens. Anxiety creates interference. Confidence creates flow. Anxiety communicates absence. It communicates urgency. It communicates that something is still missing. And the field responds by keeping that feeling active, not as punishment, but as vibrational coherence. The emotional state is the true magnetic field. You can repeat positive affirmations, but if the predominant feeling is tension, that is the vibration being emitted, the universe responds to the dominant vibration, not to the momentary speech. Gratitude stabilizes your frequency even before evidence. Gratitude here is not forced. It is silent recognition that something is being prepared. When you can sustain gratitude during silence, you communicate that you are not resisting the process. Feeling ready anticipates arrival. Ready does not mean perfect. It means emotionally stable. It means you can maintain coherence even without external confirmation. This stability shortens the time between internal adjustment and visible manifestation. The universe responds to the dominant vibration, not to the verbal request. Silence plus anxiety creates delay. Silence plus stability creates acceleration. The speed of alignment does not depend on time. It depends on the state you maintain while you wait. Silence is not a void. It is a mirror, and it is reflecting exactly what you sustain. 4. Inspired. Action emerges after internal adjustment. Many people believe they need to act to provoke manifestation. But the correct order is the opposite. First, the state organizes itself, then action appears. When you try to invert this, you create exhaustion. Not every action is productive. Only aligned action is powerful. There is a huge difference between acting from anxiety and acting from clarity. Anxious action is born from the fear that nothing is happening. It tries to force movement to relieve internal discomfort. But this type of action usually generates more noise than progress. Silence reveals which movement is coherent. When the field slows down, you have the opportunity to perceive which action truly makes sense. Without external noise, it becomes easier to identify whether an impulse is disguised desperation or true direction. Forcing paths creates unnecessary resistance. Whenever you try to push something before internal maturity, reality responds with friction. Conversations stall. Doors do not open. People step back. Not because you are blocked, but because there is still misalignment between intention and state. Internal clarity precedes external direction. When the internal adjustment happens, action no longer feels heavy. It arises almost like a natural consequence. You do not need to convince yourself. You do not need artificial motivation. The next step simply feels logical. Inspired action is simple, almost always smaller than the ego expects. It may be a call, a silent decision, a necessary cut, a discrete beginning. But this small movement, when born from real alignment, completely shifts the axis. When you feel quiet conviction, it is time to act. Quiet conviction is not euphoria. It is not adrenaline. It is absence of internal conflict. It is when you can move without tension. That lightness is the sign that silence has fulfilled its function. Aligned action does not exhaust, because it does not try to compensate for insecurity. It confirms identity, and when identity and action meet, reality follows with less resistance. Silence is not asking you to remain still. It is preparing the right moment for your movement to be precise. 5. The interval is an invitation to refine your intention. The interval between the request and manifestation is where most people get distracted. But this interval is not empty waiting. It is a strategic space. Confused desires generate confused results. If your intention is still mixed with comparison, fear of being left behind, or the need to prove something, the field receives distorted signals, and distorted signals produce inconsistent responses. The pause reveals impurities in intention. When nothing happens, you begin to question, and in that questioning, hidden motivations appear. You realize whether you truly want that, or if you were just reacting to external pressure. Adjust your intention until it becomes simple and direct. Powerful intention is clear and clean. It does not need to be intense. it needs to be coherent. When you can internally declare what you want without justifying, without explaining, and without defending, there is real strength there. Eliminate motivations based on lack. If the desire is born from a feeling of insufficiency, it carries instability. Refining intention is removing the need for external validation. It is wanting something because it matches who you are becoming, not because you want to prove something. Ask yourself if this still represents who you are becoming. Sometimes silence is not delay, it is update. What you wanted months ago may no longer be compatible with your current state. The interval allows you to review, adjust, and strengthen direction. Destiny responds to the identity assumed now, not to the old desire, not to emotional impulse, but to the identity you sustain in the present. If your intention has matured, the field responds in a more organized way. The interval is not empty, it is refinement, and refined intention accelerates the next movement. 6. Receiving requires internal structure. There is a little spoken truth. You only sustain what already vibrates compatibly with your internal structure. It is not enough to manifest. It is necessary to maintain. You only sustain what you already recognize as possible for yourself. If something arrives and you still feel too small for it, self-sabotage comes into action. Not out of malice, but out of internal incoherence. Reality does not anchor where there is unconscious rejection. Emotional preparation prevents future self-sabotage. Silence trains your stability. It teaches you not to react with panic to absence. It teaches you to trust without evidence. This maturity is what allows expansion to happen without collapse. Expansion without foundation generates instability. If life grows faster than your identity, the result does not sustain. That is why the field often slows down before delivering something greater. It is not denial. It is foundation building. Grow inside before you grow outside. That means adjusting your perception of deservingness, adjusting your ability to remain calm in the face of the new, adjusting your posture toward opportunities. Receiving requires structure. Structure is not technique. It is emotional stability. It is being able to maintain the same state when something arrives, without exaggerated euphoria, without fear of losing, without the need to prove. Silence strengthens this foundation. When you learn to sustain confidence in the interval, you learn to sustain abundance in expansion. The universe does not deliver only what you ask for. It delivers what you are able to maintain. An internal structure is what defines that capacity. 7. Maintaining the right state. During waiting is the true power. Here is the point that separates those who merely understand from those who truly live the change. Creating a state is relatively easy. Sustaining it is rare. Anyone can feel confident for a few minutes. Being able to maintain that confidence when nothing external confirms it is something completely different. It is at this point that silence stops being a test and becomes construction. Vibrational persistence builds inevitability. It is not intensity that creates results. It is repeated stability. When you maintain the same internal pattern long enough, reality begins to reorganize around that consistency. Not because you insisted, but because you remained. Continuous confidence eliminates intermittent doubt. Occasional doubt does not destroy the process. What destroys it is the constant return to the old pattern. Every time you go back to fear, urgency, or complaint, you reset the command. Maintaining the state means noticing these returns and choosing not to feed them. Silence tests your loyalty to your own desire. It is not a punitive test. It is a structural test. If you only maintain confidence when there are signs, then your confidence depends on external confirmation. But when you maintain stability, even without evidence, you prove to yourself that the state is already part of your identity. Those who maintain alignment do not need to chase, because chasing is a sign of insecurity. When you sustain coherence, you do not feel the need to pursue. You position yourself, and internal positioning creates natural attraction. Waiting reveals who you really are. When everything is still, there is no distraction, no euphoria, no external validation. There is only you and your pattern. This moment defines whether the new state has become identity or if it is still just intention. Maintaining the state is harder than creating it, because it requires silent emotional discipline. It requires conscious return. It requires maturity not to react impulsively to every temporary absence. But when you manage to remain, something changes permanently. Reality begins to treat your state as a foundation, not as an attempt, not as an experiment, as an established pattern. And the established pattern creates inevitability. You do not need to accelerate. You do not need to pressure. You do not need to convince. You need to remain. When you remain in the right state during silence, destiny does not need to be forced. It finds its path naturally, because the field responds to what is constant, and constancy is silent power.